Alright, we looked at addition and subtraction of positive and negative numbers in our last video. In this video, what we're going to talk about here is multiplying positive and negative numbers. And let me see where I want to do this. Yeah, let's do it right here. So, I told you these things were true. That if we had two signs in a row, we wanted to fix that. And so what we did is we said a plus and a plus made a plus and a minus. So won't go through that, but here's the point. The two signs in a row are actually multiplication. And so here's what I mean. If I multiply two positive numbers, I get a positive number. If I multiply a positive and a negative, I get a negative. If I multiply a negative and a positive, I get a negative. And if I multiply two negatives, it becomes a plus. So let me give you an example here, what I'm trying to say. So what we did is we just fixed the two signs in a row. And what I'm saying is when we fixed that and made it a plus, it was like we were multiplying two negatives. That's why it becomes a positive. And so this idea right here is also the key for what we're doing today. So anytime, let me show you one more. So if I had two signs in a row and I fixed them, what I was really doing was a negative sign multiplied by a positive sign is a negative sign. So the reason this is important, so I guess what I'm saying, sum this up. These signs, when we were fixing signs, we were multiplying them together. And that's exactly the same idea that we need when we multiply numbers together. So here's what I'm saying. This is two positive numbers together. Well, that makes 28. Two negative numbers together. Well, two negatives made a positive. So here, 7 times negative 9, it's a positive number and a negative number. Yeah, I have an idea to show you, but I don't know if it's a good idea. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to prove this to you, and then from then on I'm not going to mention it again. Isn't negative 8 the same thing as like negative 1 times 8? Wouldn't that be negative 8? And then, so 6 is made up, negative 6 would be negative 1 and 6. These are all the same thing. And here's what I'm trying to say. The order that you multiply things doesn't mean anything. If you multiply 2 times 3, you get 6. 3 times 2, you get 6. So I'm going to rearrange this because I'm allowed. It doesn't change anything. Now, here's what this is. It's really two negative signs in a row. And I could have even just written it as this. Two negative signs in a row knock each other out and make a positive. Okay, now if that doesn't mean anything to you, let's just dive in and I'll take it. But that's what I'm trying to say, is that what we did in our last video is the same thing we're doing in this video when it comes to dealing with the signs. So we're just going to start multiplying a bunch of these. Now 9 and 3 make 27. We have a negative and a positive. Well, negative and positive make negative. Yeah, let me do it like this. Negative and positive make a negative, just like it did in our last section when we fixed two signs in a row. Two negatives getting multiplied become a positive because we saw that negative is positive. Positive and a negative we saw makes a negative. Positive and a positive makes a positive. So again, negative 9 and 3, negative 27. Negative 2, negative 5. Negative and negative make positive. Okay, so let's go through this here again. So 6 times 8 would just get you 48. But I have opposite signs. So a negative and a positive make a negative. So 4 times 7 is just 28. But two negatives make a positive. You don't have to show that. I'm just showing you for illustrative purposes here. Okay, 9 and 7 are 63. But I have a negative and a positive. And we saw that negative and a positive are a negative. Then I got two positives. Gets me 60. Okay, so let's go through this again. We're going to multiply those numbers. Get 56. Negative and a positive gives me a negative. So I'm going to multiply these together. I have two negatives. It makes a positive. Multiply them. A negative and a positive make a negative. Two positives, just obviously positive. Okay, so let's see. Where are we going now? I don't know if we really need another story here. It means multiplying by negative means opposite. I don't know. We'll see if that's helpful. Let's think of it just like we were doing here. A negative times a 7. Negative 1 times 7 is 7. But if you have a negative times a positive, you got a negative 7. So negative 1 times negative 11, let's just multiply those. I don't think we need to introduce another idea here. We get 11 if we multiply those. A negative and a negative make a positive. Okay, so 1 times 9 is 9. It's a negative and a positive, so it's negative 9. 1 times 17 is 17. Two negatives make a positive. 1 times 8 is 8. The opposite signs, so it's a negative. Negative 1 and negative 16. So that's 16. Two negatives in a row would be a positive. Okay, now the same is going to be true here for division. So it's going to be the same rules. So we're still doing negative and negative make a positive. Negative and a positive. It doesn't change anything. So I could show you that really division is just a version of multiplication. So it doesn't change a single thing. Maybe I will show you that. Hold on. Okay, so if you, let's see how they did this here. Yeah, I will show you this on one. So another way to write division would be like this. So like it's being divided by 3. But so here's what's really happening. Division is really the same as multiplication. You could think of this as it's being multiplied by 1/3. Well, I know that's not as easy. We don't want to deal with fractions, but my point is this. If I had a positive number and a negative number, it would be a negative. So what I'm getting at here is division is going to follow the exact same rules because you can actually flip division around and just think of it like it's a multiplication problem. Okay, so negative 100 and negative 4. So we're just going to divide the numbers. I get 25. Two negatives make a positive. Okay, so we're going to divide here. We get 42 divided by 6 is just 7. Opposite side, I got a negative and a positive. Now 117 divided by 3. I don't know that one off the top of my head, so we're going to bust out the calculator. So I get 39 when I divide them. I have two negatives. That becomes a positive. Okay, just divide these guys. They have opposite signs, so it's going to be so it's a negative and a positive. Make a negative. Divide. How many you get if you divide that by 5? You get 23. You've got a negative and a negative become a positive. Okay, so there's a whole lot of these here. We're just going to keep working. I think we're going to start getting into expressions. Now, it's important. It's a really important idea. But so we're going to crunch through these, though, quickly because there's so many. A positive and a negative would be negative 14. So 7 and 2 are 14. I've got opposite signs. I got a plus and a minus. And we said a plus and a minus makes a minus. And this is multiplication. I'm going to do this one next. So 4 and 7 make 28. Yeah, let me do it like this. Those two go together to make 28. And we have a plus and a minus, so they're a negative 28. You know what? I don't like it like that. Let's go back here. So I'm going to take you like this. 7 and 2 make 14. They had opposite signs. It's a negative. So I'm going to do one step at a time here. Okay, next is multiplication right here from our dear Aunt Sally. Now I'm going to think of this as if 4 owns that plus sign and 7 owns the negative. In algebra, it doesn't make any difference. We're just going to, with positives and addition or negatives and subtraction, so everybody's going to just own that sign. So if I do 4 and 7, multiply those together, I get 28. Now I had a positive and I had a negative, so a plus and a minus make a negative. Now I know it's now like subtraction, but that doesn't change anything. It doesn't mean anything differently. Okay, now going back to our last video, we've got negative 14, negative 28. If that's money, you owe me 14, you owe me 28 more. Things are getting worse, so you should have a minus. But if you don't see that, what the number would be. Okay, so we've got 42 there. Now they were both negative, so it should be negative 42 minus 6. Now the same thing again. Things are getting worse, so it better be a negative. So you have the same sign, so you're adding them and keeping the sign that you had. Okay, now for the sake of time, I normally do one step at a time. I'm going to do a couple steps in a row here because there's like 35 slides. So got negative 24. 8 and 3 are 24. I have a positive and a negative. Now the 5 is going to own the plus. The 7 is a negative. So that's 35. A plus and a minus make a minus. And then you've got negative 4. Now, if you're having trouble with putting these together, go back to that old video. For the sake of time here, I think I need to just keep this rolling here. This is going to be a 20-minute video. So I'm putting these together. What do I got? I got 59. Putting these together, I get negative 63. All right, these guys go together, make a negative 27 because of a plus and minus. These guys go together to make negative 56. So it's just like a negative. Subtraction doesn't matter. Okay. I don't want to do all these. I'm going to just crunch them. Okay. These guys go together to make negative 83, negative 84. So I'm following those same rules about putting together numbers of the same sign that we discussed in the last video. Okay, now here's a really important idea. I have a negative inside of a parentheses, and it's being taken to the 4th power. So it really means that that number is being multiplied by itself 4 times. Okay, well that means the negatives are all being multiplied together. So they're going to cancel, so they've done. You get 4 there. Put these guys together. Well, how are they doing this? You get 4 there, so we're down to this. They're going to do a positive and a negative, gets negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 2 gets me 16. Now on the second one here, I've got the negative. It is not being included in the exponent. Because there's no parenthesis there, this is one of the reasons why the parentheses are so important. I have a negative out front, but that's not being taken to the 4th power. So this is really what we're doing. So I'm multiplying 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, and then there's a negative out front. So it's very important to see the difference between these two because you'll get 2 very different results. So this means negative 3 is being multiplied 4 times. This gets me 9. This gets me negative 27. Now negative and negative are going to make a positive 81. Okay, now this means that we're doing this. So the 4 3's are still going to make 81, but the minus outside will make it negative 81. Okay, 7 times 7 is 49. 2 negatives make that a positive. Okay, negative 7 times 7 gets you negative 49. All right, so dear Aunt Sally says we're starting with this. Let's see how they did. So we started with this. We get a negative 3. Now, this 3 outside of here means multiplication. And I'm not going to do it the way they did here. I'm going to take 3 as he owns that negative sign. So I've got 12. Let me go down here and pick this up here. So let's get rid of this for a second. So this is multiplication. And I'm going to say that 3 owns his negative sign, and this 3 owns this. It doesn't matter that it's subtraction, it's still a negative sign. So 3 and 3 are 9. 2 negatives make a positive. Now, because there is a space here, there was some subtraction going on, I'm going to make sure I put that sign in front of him as a 9. So it's not just multiplication, there's more going on. So 3 and 3 are 9. 2 negatives make a positive. And I'm going to put the positive there because we are not just multiplying, there's more to do. You put 12 plus 9 together, you get 21. Okay, so I'm going to deal with the parentheses first. We worked on this in the last video. Hopefully you see you owe me $3. Now, the 4 is going to own that sign. The 3 is going to own his sign. So I've got a 12. Negative, negative make a positive. And because I'm not done, because there's still work to be done with the 17, I'm going to show that that is a positive 12 because it tells me that I then need to add them up. Okay, in here you have 7, you owe me 13, so you owe me 6. Now, everyone's going to own their sign. That gets me 36. A minus minus is a plus. Now, I'm going to show that plus because we were doing a subtraction problem originally. So there's more to do here with this 16. So now we have 16 plus 36, 52. Okay, so we've gone full scale. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally here. I'm going to start with the exponents. Let's see if I can use what they did. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start with the exponents. This has to be done first. We saw this is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. It's going to be negative 8. Now, we have multiplication and division. Those are tied, so we're going to work left to right. So they did this, and we got negative 72. Now, negative 72 divided by negative 8. We just divide 72 and 8. We're dividing a negative by a negative, so 2 negatives in a row make a plus. Okay, so we have to do this first. It's negative 3, so the negative is included in the exponent. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally says we're doing exponents. So I know there are parentheses here, but there's nothing inside the parentheses to do. So this is not like there's operations in there. It really means multiplication here instead. So 3 times 3 is 9. So 2 negatives are going to cancel, make that a positive. I then get, so these two make positive 9. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. Okay. Now over here, so we have multiplication and division left, but I'm going to do this multiplication because it's on the left. That's supposed to be division, so let me write this again. It's supposed to be a division sign. Okay, I'm just going to divide the two numbers. That makes 4. I'm dividing a negative and a negative. They make it a positive 4. Okay. Now, pause it if you want to try this on your own. I'm going to jump ahead. That makes negative 8. Excuse me. Okay, I've got multiplication and division left. So I'm going to multiply 18 times 4 and I get 72. It's a positive and a negative. Okay, now I'm just going to divide my numbers. Get 9. A negative and a negative make a positive. Okay, some more order of operations here. So I'm going to start, what do I got? I have multiplication and division would be first. I'm going to work left to right. So they've started with this because I'm going left to right because multiplication and division are tied. That gets me this. Okay, now we've got multiplication to do next, so that turns into 21. You owe me 15, but you have 21. Your bank account balance would be 6. Okay, this is going to be first. These are tied, but this is on the left. So 27 divided by 3 is 9. A negative and a positive make a negative. Now, I'm going to put these two together here because that's next. 5 and 6 make 30. Negative and a negative make a positive. Okay, you owe me 9, but you've come across 30. You've got positive 21 in the bank. All right, negative 32 divided by 4 is my first step here because it's on the left. So I'm just going to divide those. I get 8, negative and a positive. Okay, multiplication here. They make 14. It's 2 negatives make a positive. So just add them. You owe me 8. You came across 14. Your bank balance is 6. Okay, so we're just going to do some evaluating. We've done this before. We're just going to plug in for n. Now I'm showing the parentheses, but there's no real work to do, so we're really just doing negative 5 plus 1. Okay, so negative 5 plus 1, you owe me 5, you came across 1, you're still in the hole. Okay, so I have 2 negatives in a row, so that's multiplication. That gets me 5. Okay, let's evaluate some more here. I'm subbing in that negative 8. Now there's really nothing to do there. This is really just negative 8 plus 2. Do your money, you'd get negative 6. Okay, negative 8 is 8. So 2 negatives in a row, or you could think of it as the opposite of negative 8. You get 10. Okay, pause it if you want to try on your own. I'm subbing in there. The parentheses really don't matter. I'm just adding those together. Get negative 1. The opposite of negative 9 is 9, or 2 negatives in a row make a positive. Same thing. Okay, we've got a more complicated evaluation here, but we're just going to sub in 2 numbers. Now, they're not showing their parentheses, but I think you should. But there's no work to be done. Let me just show you. So, okay, now I would do this just to make sure you don't miss anything. But there's nothing now to be done in there. So I'm going to just, like the parentheses on the inside don't do anything. There's no multiplication. So it is this. They just skip to this. But the reason I do this is because there are times that there's something you'll overlook if you don't see that you're subbing in with the parentheses. You'll overlook a multiplication usually. Okay, so now we're working inside of parentheses. That beats exponents. So we turn this into a 6. Now 6 squared is 36. Okay, now I'm going to sub in without showing the parentheses because I know it's not going to change anything in this particular one. There would be no work to do that's depending on multiplication. So, dear Aunt Sally says let's work inside of here. We get 14. Now, we do our exponents. I don't know, 14 squared turns out to be 196. Okay, subbing in. Again, I'm leaving off the parentheses on this one. Inside the parentheses makes that a 2. So this is 2 times 2 times 2, which is going to be 8. Okay, a little more subbing. I hope they showed it. No, they didn't. Yeah, I'm going to show the parentheses on this because I want you to be careful, especially on the second one. So I'm subbing in here. Now this is, it doesn't do anything, so it's just like 20 minus 12, that's 8. But here's why I did this one. Here's why the subbing in is important. I now have 2 negatives in a row. So this is going to turn into 20 positive 12. I'm going to change that sign like we did in a couple of videos ago. Now that becomes 32. Okay, I'm subbing in, so I'm going to show it. There's no work to do with that, so it's just 17 minus 19. You have 17, you owe 19, now you owe 2. Okay, they're working it again. We're subbing in the negative 19 this time. 2 negatives turn this into a positive. Okay, the parenthesis didn't really do anything, so this is what I'm doing. You owe me 5, you owe me 14, you owe me 19. Okay, I've got 2 negatives in a row. They become a positive. Okay, negative 5 plus 14. You've got, you owe me 5, you paid back 14, you're going to have 9. You'd have the opposite signs here, you can just subtract them, and you would take the sign of the bigger number. Okay, let's make sure, yeah, they subbed in here. So this is getting more complicated, but it's the same idea. We're still just plugging in. Subbing in a 4 here. Now, this is the right sub. They showed the parentheses because there's multiplication to do. It's important. Now, exponents come next. So 4 squared is 16. Now we've got multiplication here and here. We're going to work left to right. Put that together, we get 52. Okay, here's another reason why the parentheses are a big deal. So I've got negative 3 being squared, which you might miss if you didn't put the parentheses. So that's exponent is next. Okay, this is multiplication. This one's next. I'm going to think of this too as owning the sign in front of them. So this is 2 times 3 is 6. A negative and a negative is a positive. And I'm going to show that because I was doing addition or subtraction. Okay, now we go left to right. It really wouldn't matter on this one, but okay, going to sub in again. Okay, this is first. Negative 2 is being squared, so I've got 4. I'm going to get 4. Now this one is next. We could do this a couple ways. I'll just go ahead and do this. Now I could have cleaned up the 2 minuses in a row on the last one. I thought about doing that. But 2 minuses in a row make a positive. Okay, we're just going to add and subtract from left to right. We get 18 minus 5. We get 13. All right, there was a lot there. That was a long video. But what I'm trying to show you is that the fact that 2 pluses in a row make a positive, a minus and a positive, or positive and a negative, they make a negative, and 2 negatives make a positive. It's the same throughout. And what we really did in the last video was just the same idea of multiplication. So anyway, it's really important that this lesson is something you totally have down before you move on.